For 90% of Big Brother players, once you step foot into the house, you get one shot to win. Ever. One crack at victory. One grasp at the money. And if you mess up and get evicted, it's over. Unless you're Jack. But for everyone else, you are fresh out of luck once Julie tells you you're evicted. However, every 100 years or so, the stars align and Big Brother actually takes advantage of their prior talent by holding an all-star season. And wouldn't you know it, Big Brother 7 was one of those seasons. Big Brother made it this big whole event, bringing back 14 of their best players for this momentous season. And Mike Boogie Malin, the main character of today's story, was one of those players. Mike Boogie came into the game with a target plastered on his back, but through some devious lies, some well-timed betrayals, and lots of gaslighting, he found a way to weave through the season and come out on top with the All-Star crown. So, how exactly did it go down? Let's find out. This is the story of how Mike Boogie won Big Brother All-Stars.
Will and I are very good friends, but it would be a nice coup d'etat 5 years later to show him that maybe Mike Boogie's just as smart as he is.
If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Or if you're already subscribed, maybe drop a like instead to help the algorithm out. Thanks. Mike Malin, who went by the nickname Boogie, was a 35-year-old bar owner originating from Big Brother 2. During Big Brother 2, Boogie was most known for helping create the Chilltown Alliance, as well as proposing to fellow house guest Krista at the finale. However, in terms of the game, Mike Boogie didn't perform all too well. He certainly picked up the strategy of the game quicker than most of the others, and he was a pretty active player. But the Chilltown Alliance was far too open about their allegiance, and they weren't very liked by their peers. So the rest of the house banded together against Chilltown, and Boogie was eventually evicted in 8th place at the end of week 4. However, the legacy at Chilltown would live on, as his partner in crime, Dr. Will, went on to win the season. Even with Chilltown taking home the money in Season 2, it felt like this was the end of Mike Boogie's Big Brother story. But, as luck would have it, 5 years later, Big Brother announced that Season 7 would be an all-star season. And Mike Boogie was one of the lucky few chosen to play.
Mike Boogie.
As I was Googling information about Mike Boogie for this video, I got a little sidetracked and started Googling myself. And before I knew it, I was seeing a lot of my personal information that I didn't know was public. And that scared me. I don't want my address and phone number accessible to the masses, which is why I teamed up with the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Aura's kind of like your guardian angel when it comes to protecting you online. You basically let them know that you want their help, and they take care of everything for you. Searching through the web, automatically removing your info from these sites, and keeping it off. Aura is much more than an information removal tool though. Aura is all-in-one digital security. Aura acts as a secure VPN, a password manager, an antivirus, and thanks to their 24/7 monitoring, you will receive real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, as well as whenever your personal info is found on the dark web. As someone who's working 8+ hours a day, I don't have the time or energy to worry about what personal information is just floating around on the internet and being used maliciously by scammers or stalkers, which is why I chose Aura. One app, every layer of protection. You can try Aura for 14 days for absolutely free at aura.com/ethanimail. In those 2 weeks, you will discover exactly where your data is being exposed and sold. And Aura will start scrubbing your personal info off those data broker sites without you needing to lift a finger. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring today's video, and with that, Let's get back to the All-Stars. Because this was an All-Star season, I will quickly run through all of the players that were chosen so that you can get an idea of which house guests were the most well-connected amongst the cast. Big Brother 1 had one player, that being Chicken George. Big Brother 2 had two players, that being Dr. Will and, of course, Mike Boogie. Big Brother 3 also had two players, with those being Daniel Reyes and Marcellus. Big Brother 4 also had two players, that being Allison and Erica. Big Brother 5 was the first season to have three players, with those being Jace, Nokomis, and Diane. And Big Brother 6 was given a whopping 4 slots, with those being Janelle, Kaser, James, and Howie. After looking at this cast, there seemed to be one glaring question. What the heck was Mike Boogie doing here? For one reason or another, the other 13 players made sense. They were either top-tier strategists, fierce competitors, or memorable big-time personalities. But Mike Boogie? Well, he wasn't any of those things. Out of all of the All-Stars, Mike Boogie had survived the least amount of weeks. He wasn't really that popular during Big Brother 2, and although he did show some promising signs of strategy on his original season, it wasn't anything that I would necessarily classify as All-Star worthy. So again, why was he here? Well, the story goes that the casting team really wanted Dr. Will on the season, and Dr. Will knew it. Therefore, he knew he had some leverage over the producers, and he could negotiate some terms. Once Mike Boogie had learned that Big Brother 7 was going to be an all-star season, he immediately called Will and begged him to get him on the season because Boogie believed that it was his destiny to go on and win the show, or something like that. So, Will told the producers that he would only agree to appear on the season if they cast Mike Boogie too. Because they wanted Will so badly, they agreed to his terms, and Mike Boogie was given a spot on the cast, which is possibly the explanation as to why there was an 8-6 gender imbalance favoring the men. Even if it may have been through some under-the-table dealings, Mike Boogie had made it into the house. But he was in there with a bunch of sharks, so he'd have to be on his A-game if he wanted to prove that he was worthy of being an all-star.
Down.
All right, there's the first alliance right here. We're calling you guys out.
Unlike normal seasons where nobody knows anybody, these people all knew of each other, which meant that there were already alliances and targets before the game even began. Mike Boogie pretty obviously had Dr. Will as his main ally. Will literally got him on the season, so they would naturally continue their Chilltown alliance from season 2.
We have the most unique thing in here is that there's no other pairs.
What makes Will and I stronger is that we play with no fear. We're gonna end up running things in this house. It's just a matter of time.
On the other side of things, Boogie had some targets in mind too. Specifically, the 4 players from Big Brother 6. Season 6 had the most representatives on this season. And not only that, but these 4 players had all worked together during their original season, albeit to differing degrees with James. So, coming into All-Stars, the Season 6 quartet looked to be very dangerous if left unchecked, and Boogie wanted them out.
Oh, Kaser, he's such a teddy bear. He's so nice. That guy loves himself. He's very cocky. He's a smug.
However, Boogie had learned from his mistakes the last time, and he did not want to win the first HOH. He didn't want the spotlight on him so early, and if he won and took the shot at Season 6, he would have a minimum of 3 enemies going into Week 2. So, he happily lost this first HOH in order to keep himself clean of blood.
I definitely do not want to, win the first HOH because you really set yourself up as a target.
The first HOH actually had a twist where there would be 2 separate HOHs crowned, and the winners ended up being Jace and Janelle. All things considered, this was actually a terrible outcome for Mike Boogie. Going into the season, it initially looked like a natural battle would occur between the 4 Season 6 players and the 3 Season 5 players, since they were the biggest factions coming into the game. However, with the way the double HOH twist worked, Janelle and Jace would have to come together and agree on which 2 players should be nominated. Otherwise, they would be nominated. Obviously, Janelle wouldn't allow any Season 6 players to be put on the block, and likewise, Jace wouldn't want any Season 5 players to be nominated. So, this cut down the field of potential nominees down to just a handful of players. And of those players, the most obvious nominees would be Dr. Will and Mike Boogie. Not only was Dr. Will viewed as the biggest individual threat on the cast, as he was the only winner on the season, but Will and Boogie were like the obvious duo in the house. So all signs seem to be pointing towards Chilltown seeing the block in this first week.
Dr. Will
is.
He cannot be reckoned with. I mean, this guy won before. He's smooth.
I know Mike Boogie tried to knock me off on the thing. That kind of pissed me off.
But luckily for them, this cast was full of players playing really hard right from the get-go. And some people shot themselves in the foot because of it. You see, Mike Boogie wasn't the only one who wanted Season 6 gone. Most of the house recognized how threatening they were, and they wanted them gone too. So Allison and Danielle started talking about a potential plan to try and convince Jace to purposefully disagree with any nomination that Janelle tried to make, which in turn would force Jace and Janelle to be the nominees for the week. And then they could vote out Janelle and start the season off with a huge bang. Allison approached Jace about this plan, but obviously, Jace wasn't thrilled with the idea of revoking his own HOH title and naming himself as a nominee. So, instead, Jace exposed this plan to Janelle, and it made their nomination choices pretty easy. When it was time for nominations, Boogie and Will both received their keys, and instead, Allison and Danielle were nominated for Eviction. Janelle also went on to win the veto this week, which likely meant that the nominations would stay the same. After Boogie knew that he and Will were probably safe for the week, Boogie started to work on building up his relationships. And, to his credit, he worked really hard. Throughout the first few days, Boogie spent time with Diane, Nokomis, and Erica, building up his own personal relationships with them and beginning work on an overarching plan to try and rally together those on the outs to make one big group.
I watched last year, and so these guys think they're running.
Yeah.
And that's good. Let them think that.
Yeah.
They've got another thing coming.
Yeah.
Boogie knew that if he and the others played it too safe and gave the Season 6 Alliance, also known as the S6 Alliance, too much of a cushion, then they would become way too lethal, and they could steamroll through the game. Boogie even had an idea that he brought up with Erica about possibly trying to convince Janelle to backdoor James this week. But obviously, that wasn't going to happen, and I don't think Boogie ever actually went through with trying to convince Janelle to do so, which was probably for the best. Janelle ended up not using the veto, as expected, and the nominations remained the same. Now, it seemed that Janelle's plan was to evict Allison here. However, Boogie was maybe actually wanting to evict Danielle instead. Word on the street was that Danielle and James were secretly really tight with each other, and if Danielle joined up with the other S6ers, that alliance would become that much scarier, because Danielle was an exceptional Big Brother player.
Danielle's told me that we have nothing to worry about from her.
The more that anyone from S6 pushes to keep Danielle, the more skeptical I am, especially James.
Allison, on the other hand, while a big threat in her own right, was very open about wanting to target Janelle, which made her a potential asset in Boogie's big plan to take down Season 6.
If Danielle walks out that door and Allison stays, cat fight central, Janelle versus Allison, it's gonna be off the hook.
This all sounds pretty good on paper. However, Dr. Will was actually a little hesitant to try and pull off any big moves this week. He knew that he and Boogie were already spotlight targets. So, in order to diminish their threat level, Will wanted to give off the perception that he and Boogie were just chilling this season, mostly just hanging out and not really playing the game. If they were to try and make this big move in week 1 to save Allison, then yeah, maybe they could pull it off, but it would also show their cards completely, and they would have no real way of being able to hide in the shadows after the fact. Even so, Boogie kept going to work. He met with Erica and gave her the pitch. If Boogie, Will, Erica, Nokomis, and Diane all voted to evict Danielle, that would be enough to force a tie. But if Marcellus also voted to evict Danielle, as he clearly wanted to, for revenge with how Danielle eliminated him in Big Brother 3, then that would give them the numbers to do it. However, this plan would require all of them to be 100% on board with it, and unfortunately, Erica was a bit scared to make this move, and she got cold feet. Erica pretty much told Boogie that the plan to get Danielle evicted wasn't happening anymore, and then she warned him that him playing so hard so early on was going to put a target on his back. Upon hearing this, Boogie backed down from the plan, but he was pretty bummed and a little scared now. I think Boogie came into this season with a chip on his shoulder, and he really wanted to prove that he could compete with the best of the best, which is why he tried really hard to make this move happen. But not only was this move not going to go through anymore, but there was a very good chance that Danielle would eventually find out how much work he had been doing to try and get her evicted. And, in turn, she could come after him in the coming weeks. Mike really put himself out there in this first week and did actually do some good work in forging bonds with Diane, Nokomis, Erica, and even Jace, which I hadn't mentioned yet, but yeah, Boogie and Jace spent a lot of time bonding this week, and that was great. However, Mike also underestimated just how hardcore these all-star players were when it came to strategizing. Like, there was so much strategy talk and studying and manipulation going on in this first week, and it made it really difficult for Mike to successfully pull off the move to evict Danielle because he was competing against 13 other agendas. And unlike a normal season of Big Brother, there were no sheep in this house. When eviction night came, Diane and Nokomis both did actually vote to evict Danielle, but they were the only ones to do so. Mike reluctantly voted to evict Allison, accepting the fact that his grand plan had been defeated, and by a vote of 8-2, Allison was the first All-Star evicted from the Big Brother house.
As the week evolved, I saw Danielle getting very close with S6. That scares me. Then I'm not as interested in keeping someone like that in the house.
By a vote of 8-2, Allison, you are the first All-Star evicted from the Big Brother house.
I'm really sorry. I tried my best. I tried to get the group together and keep you in the house, but I wasn't able to pull it off.
Going into the Week 2 HOH, Boogie got another bad HOH outcome once Kaser won the HOH.
The HOH was a huge blow, and if you had me rank in order who I would want to win, Kaser would have been the last name I would have written down. It's like a sequel.
This was another week with Season 6 in power, which meant another week that Boogie couldn't work to evict one of them. Worse yet, one of the names that Kaser was throwing around to nominate was Mike Boogie, and possibly even Will too.
Chilltown exists in this house. With Boogie and Doctor. You're gonna have to put each one of them up.
But there were some other names in the mix. Kaser suspected both Nokomis and Diane to have been the two that voted in the minority. Plus, those two were a part of the potential Season 5 crew. Nokomis was a very smart player. So, for the time being, it seemed like targeting Nokomis was the way that Kaser was leaning. While Kaser still could have nominated Boogie next to Nokomis, he went with a slightly different plan. Instead of drawing a line in the sand with Chilltown, Kaser brought Boogie and Will up to his HOH room in the hopes of coming to an understanding. The biggest threat to the Season 6 alliance was all of the outside floaters joining forces and coming after them, aka what Mike Boogie was trying to do in Week 1. So, in an attempt to squash this from happening, Kaser wanted to make an agreement with Will and Boogie. Not an alliance, but an agreement for Chilltown in Season 6 to not go after each other in the coming weeks and to instead go after the floaters. For the sake of simplicity, every player in the house that wasn't in the Season 6 alliance or the Chilltown alliance will fall under the umbrella as the floaters. To Boogie's credit, he was responding exactly how Kaser wanted him to, spewing just enough anti-floater propaganda to make Kaser feel comfortable with not nominating either of them. But Boogie was lying straight through his teeth, because the second he came into any sort of power, it was 2 Season 6 members going on the block and one of them going home.
You guys probably suspect he might be going up.
There's a distinct possibility. My thoughts are this: I just hate it when people cruise to the end and they don't want to put themselves out there.
I'm here to have an understanding that, if you guys don't go up, let's take out a floater next week. This is not like an alliance or anything.
If you want a commitment to put up floaters, that's been my MO since I got here.
When it was time for nominations, Boogie and Will had their keys come out for the second straight week, and Kaser instead nominated Nokomis and Diane for eviction.
Do I think it was a good move for Kaser to nominate 2 floaters? No! He should have nominated me and Will! Bring.
Hello?
Will.
Yeah.
I'm at the nomination ceremony, and Kaser put both our keys in the box.
When Erica won the veto, it felt like everything should have been gravy for Mike Boogie. Except that wasn't the case. Janelle, James, and Howie were all wanting Kaser to switch his target off of Nokomis and onto Boogie. They felt that Chilltown was way stronger than the Nokomis-Diane alliance, and were also way more likely to target Season 6 despite any agreement they made with Kaser. So, they wanted Kaser to backdoor Boogie this week in order to weaken Will. Now, you may be asking, why wouldn't they just nominate Will at that point? But it's because they felt that if they evicted Boogie, Will would have no desire to play the game anymore, and he would just want to leave too. So, it would be like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
I think Chilltown needs to be broken up now.
Chilltown should have been broken up during the nomination ceremony.
I don't like Boogie anymore. I just feel like they're laughing at us because they're probably like, ooh, we've got 2 weeks safe now.
The best thing you can do is weaken that. And by weakening him, it's sending Mike Boogie home.
When those 3 Season 6 members approached Kaser about this, he seemed to genuinely consider it for a minute. But thankfully, he shut it down, because he felt that it was necessary to have Chilltown there as somewhat of a shield, in the hopes that if one of the floaters that they were close with, like Marcellus, won the HOH, then he would take the shot at Chilltown rather than Season 6. James and Janelle weren't too happy about this, but unfortunately for them, they weren't the HOH this week. Erica didn't end up using the veto anyways, and the nomination stayed locked in as Diane and Nokomis. In the meantime, Boogie and Will continued to try and rally over the rest of the floaters into their anti-Season 6 group, such as Jace, Erica, and Chicken George, and they were doing a pretty good job in rallying them over.
No one can deny Season 6 is totally together. Whoever wins the next HOH has to put up 2 of them.
So are we going to allow this to go on and all be kind of not together?
We have to stick together. We can all be in agreement that someone from Season 6 has to go.
At this point, the house seemed completely divided. On one side, you had the Season 6 alliance, with Janelle, Kaser, James, Howie, and Marcellus as an attached member. And on the other side, you had Chilltown and the floaters they had rallied, that being Boogie, Will, Jace, Diane, and Nokomis. Then, in the middle, you had Danielle, who was keeping her cards very close to her chest, Erica, who was playing both sides at the moment, and Chicken George, who nobody really seemed to figure out how he was actually playing. Although Boogie did do a lot of campaigning to George, and seemingly had him leaning in the direction of targeting the Season 6 alliance.
I have no choice. These people, they already come in with an alliance.
As for the vote, Boogie had a closer personal relationship with Diane, and he wanted to keep her in the game. While Nokomis was initially the target, the vote actually swayed a lot this week, and eventually, Season 6 switched their target onto Diane. But Boogie and Will kept campaigning to save Diane, and while Boogie didn't find success in flipping the vote in week 1, he actually succeeded this time, and Season 6 soon found out that they did not have the numbers to keep Nokomis anymore. So, when eviction night came, the majority of players voted to evict Nokomis, with the exceptions of Janelle and Will. I think Janelle voted against Diane because she just didn't like her, and Will voted against her because he was bored and wanted to mix things up. Regardless, it wasn't enough to sway things in the other direction, and by a vote of 8-2, Nokomis was evicted from the Big Brother house.
A good reason to get rid of Nokomis is that she is a chameleon in this game. I vote to evict Nokomis.
By a vote of 8-2, Nokomis you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
I really like Nokomis, and I was sorry to see her go. On the other hand, Diane did stay, and she's hot.
All things considered, this was a very scary week for Boogie. Janelle, Howie, and James were all campaigning for Boogie to go at one point, which didn't look good for his long-term chances in the game. But he managed to squeak through the week unscathed, and sometimes that's all you need.
It was his opportunity to nominate the strongest alliance in this household, Will and Boogie. Are you kidding me?
As the players went to compete in the third HOH, Boogie knew that this was the time for Chilltown and the Floaters to step up and win big time so that they could take this shot at Season 6. But for the third week in a row, they were unsuccessful because James ended up winning the third HOH. Oh my god, a third straight week of Season 6 in power.
Yet again, S6 takes a head of household. That's 3 in a row. I give credit where credit is due, and S6 is good.
It felt like the super obvious thing for James to do here would just be to target Chilltown. But for whatever reason, this wasn't the direction he wanted to go in. As back and forth as the Season 6 Alliance had been regarding their desires about wanting to target Chilltown directly, it seemed that their main agenda was actually to get rid of the Floaters rather than Chilltown. They wanted to weaken Chilltown by dwindling their potential numbers, aka the Floaters that lean towards being on Chilltown's side, but they didn't want to fully destroy Chilltown, because Chilltown was a big target that could act as a meat shield for the Season 6 Alliance, and if they got rid of them too early, then all of the Floaters would basically be forced to go after Season 6, as they would have no other option at that point. Now, to be totally blunt with you, I think this is very silly logic, because Season 6 was already so obviously a bigger threat than Chilltown, and most of the Floaters would target Season 6 regardless. But this is the direction that James was taking this week. So, instead of targeting Boogie or Will, James wanted to target Chicken George. Not only because James didn't respect him, but because Chicken George was like the single easiest person to target. So, when it was time for nominations, James nominated Chicken George. And Will.
Obviously, I have nominated the kind Dr. Will and the Chicken George for Eviction.
Now, why was Will on the block? Well, crazily enough, Will was on the block as a pawn. I haven't touched upon it too much yet because this video is supposed to be about Boogie, not Will, but I kinda have to bring this up because Will's game is so intertwined with Boogie's game that they're practically one and the same. So, remember way back towards the beginning when I said that Will was trying to give off the impression that he wasn't here to play this season and was instead just hanging out in order to diminish his threat level? Well, Will took that to the extreme, and he made it his mission to complain about how bored he was and how he didn't even want to be in the house and how he wanted to go home, like all the time. All in an attempt to convince the others that he genuinely didn't want to be there, so he looked like a non-threat. So, when talking to James before nominations, Will happily volunteered to go up on the block as a pawn because he didn't care, to which James happily accepted because that was less blood on his hands.
I was nominated 4 times on Big Brother 2. I couldn't care less.
I need someone that's going up as a pawn. Dr. Will's fine with that because I need Dr. Will here.
In what sick and twisted universe that the greatest player to ever play this game be called a pawn? It's a little quizzical.
Will genuinely was a pawn, though, to get Chicken George evicted, which is really wild to think about. But it was the truth. Even with Will on the block, James and Boogie had come to an agreement that was pretty much an extension of the agreement they had made with Kaysher the prior week. We don't go after you, and you don't go after us. So, wildly, things were looking fine for Boogie. Up until George turned into a superhero and won the veto. This was not really an outcome that many in the house considered a possibility, and this changed everything. James's main target was now safe, Will was left on the block by himself, and James needed to figure out who would be the replacement nominee. Boogie sensed that they could be in some serious danger, and he and Will went to James and tried to pitch for Marcellus to be the replacement. Boogie was actually quite confident that his pitch was successful, but he was completely wrong. James didn't want to nominate Marcellus. He wanted to nominate Boogie and send him home. At this point, James felt that he needed to cut his losses and just take the shot at Chilltown, since the pieces were pretty much already in place with Will on the block and an empty seat next to him.
So who goes home this week?
Boogie or Will? So we're gonna put up Boogie next to Will and vote out who, Boogie?
Yeah.
However, crazily enough, the rest of season 6 didn't like that plan, and they actually wanted Jace to be the target instead. Over the last couple of weeks, Boogie, Will, and Jace had gotten very close, to the point that Jace was pretty much an honorary Chilltown member. Unlike Boogie and Will, though, Jace was a dangerous competitor that Janelle, Kaser, and Howie were very worried about if he won an upcoming HOH. James did not want to put Jace up, as he and Jace had this silent understanding about not being backdoored, since that's how they were both taken out on their initial seasons, but the rest of his alliance members kept pushing him to nominate Jace and not Boogie.
Who can win vetoes? Who can win HOHs? That person is Jace.
I'm really worried about Jace too.
I'm telling you, he's gonna bite us in the ass if you don't get rid of him now.
If you haven't caught on yet, the Season 6 alliance, while very powerful, disagreed a lot when it came to the game. And that will become very important very soon. Ultimately, after a lot of discussion, the Season 6 Alliance came to the conclusion that if James nominated Boogie, the House would probably not even send him home and would instead evict Will, which isn't what they wanted.
You want to send Will home? No, we don't want to send Will home. We want to send Boogie home, but everyone to keep Boogie. So we have to send you home.
So, at the veto ceremony, George took himself off the block, and James named Jace the replacement nominee. Once again, Boogie had dodged a major bullet here. But even so, his work for the week was not finished. At the veto ceremony, Will put on a grand performance where he told the house guests that he hated them all and wanted to be voted out. All for show and to once again make it seem like he was a candidate to go home at any point, but Will was relying on Boogie to actually secure the votes for him to stay.
I can't find an individual to hate because I hate you all. I'm gonna ask to be removed from this game by you all. Don't use it, vote me out.
What is going on right now?
I need you to just chill. Give me a couple votes. Ensure that I stay.
Will's my best friend in the house. I'm extremely loyal to him, and he is going to stay and fight with me like a Chilltown warrior.
So, Boogie worked throughout the week, convincing the floaters in the Season 6 Alliance separately that they needed to keep Will in the house. Since the general consensus seemed to be that Jace actually was the more dangerous threat, with only James and Diane considering flipping to keep Jace, it was actually not too difficult to make it happen.
If I have to get into a tub to make sure that I get the votes for Will to stay this week...
Don't you think you'd rather have Willie or doesn't it rather than Jace who wants to crucify you guys?
I'm a committed friend and fellow Alliance member.
So, against all odds, it seemed like Chilltown would survive yet another week in the house. However, Boogie was sloppy in a different regard. One night, Boogie had too many drinks, and he went to go and talk to Janelle. Boogie was still upset that Jace was the replacement nominee instead of Marcellus, and after Janelle made a comment to Boogie where she basically told him to go win an HOH and make it happen himself, Boogie snapped and said straight up that if he won an HOH, he wasn't going after Marcellus. He was putting her and Kaser up, and Kaser wasn't going home. I am sure every single one of you watching can figure out how terrible this was for Boogie to say. There is no excuse for it. And even though this information was kinda already assumed, it is still not good to say it out loud, flat out like that. Anyway, Boogie was lucky that it didn't have any immediate repercussions, and the plan for the week remained intact. When eviction night came, everyone voted to keep Will. So by a vote of 9-0, Jace was evicted from the Big Brother house.
Understand this. I love Jace, but Will's my boy. He's my best friend in here.
By a vote of 9-0, Jace You have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
Yo, man, I knew from minute one that I was gonna become great friends with you. I definitely look forward to kicking it with you and laying down some farm boy tracks.
Losing Jace was tough because Jace was Boogie's second closest friend in the game, but the alternative was losing Will, who was his actual closest friend. So, in the end, it was in Boogie's best interest for Jace to go, even if it hurt.
Bring, bring. Hello. You're not gonna believe it. I go in front of the entire house and I say, I hate you all. No one voted even against me. Everyone voted against Jace.
Going into the fourth HOH, Boogie was fired up and ready for a win. But not only was Boogie eliminated first, but then freaking Janelle won the HOH. Oh my god. Not only was this the fourth week in a row that season 6 was in power, but Boogie had just told her that he wanted to send her home. So, yeah, it shouldn't come as a surprise to learn that Janelle's initial target was Mike Boogie.
Let's go home. Let's go home.
It wasn't just Janelle that wanted him gone, though. Marcellus was desperately wanting Boogie to leave, and James was also pleading for the Season 6 Alliance to finally pull the trigger and target Chilltown, especially since Boogie was broadcasting to everyone about wanting to go after Season 6.
I want Boogie to leave this week. That's the biggest threat.
You know, Chilltown is the biggest concern right now because Chilltown is coming directly after us.
We'll get rid of Chilltown.
So, it was looking super gloomy for Boogie, and that felt proven once Janelle actually did nominate him and Erica with a short but brutal speech for him. I will shortly explain this in a little more detail, but for right now, all I want to point out is that Mike Boogie was wearing the longest and, dare I say, worst pair of shorts that I have ever seen in my life.
I've nominated you, Boogie. Boogie, you said you're coming after me. I dislike you very much. And I nominated Erica because I thought that people would absolutely not vote against her.
There's a lot of game left to be played, and I'm gonna play it till the end, baby.
Anyways, Boogie was naturally quite angry and upset with where he stood in the house. He was the main target, sitting on the block, going up against an alliance that was unbeatable in HOHs. But he realized that it could have been worse. Janelle could have nominated him next to Will and guaranteed that a Chilltown member would go home this week. So why didn't she? Well, get ready, because this is a lot. Okay, so just as Boogie had helped Will survive the prior week, kinda, Will had been putting in so much work to try and keep Boogie safe this week. Before the nominations, he tried clearing the air with Season 6, telling them that no, Chilltown actually isn't coming after you, and instead, they were wanting to target the floaters. Will even went so far as to volunteer himself for the block in Boogie's place as a sign of good faith, and to try and keep Boogie safe.
I guarantee you can make a deal with Mike Boogie. Between the 6 of us, run out of the floaters. We'll guarantee whatever you want, see if we can take a group of 6 to the final 6.
So what if I put Boogie and Chicken George up?
What if you put me and Chicken George up? Why won't you put me up?
Naturally, the guys in Season 6 didn't really believe Will when he said that Chilltown wasn't going after them, especially since Boogie went on his drunk tirade the week before. But Janelle is a different story. For starters, Will and Janelle had an interesting relationship. Although Janelle genuinely didn't like Boogie all that much, she really liked Will, and the two of them had some great chemistry. So not only did Janelle not want to nominate Will in general, but she was also much more open to the idea of working up something with Will. Especially since she was already thinking along the same lines as Will. Janelle didn't see the floaters as the 5 players in the middle of 2 battling alliances. No, she saw them as their own alliance of 5.
We're kind of worried about the floaters because they're pretty much their own alliance of 5.
Okay.
And I'm not scared of Chilltown.
So, when looking at the big picture, why would she go after the measly Chilltown alliance of 2 that can't seem to win a competition to save their lives when there was this genuinely dangerous group of 5 players that had the numbers advantage? So, even before having this conversation with Will, Janelle had made up her own secret plan. She didn't actually want Mike Boogie to go this week. Rather, she wanted to backdoor one of the floaters that she saw as the most dangerous to her game, that being Danielle or Diane. She knew that it would be majorly suspicious, though, if she didn't nominate Mike Boogie, especially after the last week, which is why she did nominate him. But it was really all for show.
No one in the house really knows this, but I'd rather have Mike Boogie stay in the house. My big plan is Chilltown winning the power veto. If Boogie came off the block, I could nominate another floater.
So, now that the nominations were complete, she felt like it was time to bring Boogie and Will into the plan and let them know that she was actually on their side.
Oh, never mind about the speech at the nominations. I was trying to make Erica feel better.
Right.
So,
it works out fine.
if one of you wins, I kept you and Will off the block, that you guys would vote out the person that I wanted you to vote out.
Yeah, we'll do whatever you want. Gives me new life.
This was a pretty huge moment for Boogie. Janelle was offering him an unexpected olive branch, and it gave him hope. Going into the veto competition, Boogie had himself, Will, Janelle, and possibly even Howie now playing for him to win, which gave him great odds. And guess what? For the first time this season, Chilltown was able to pull out the W, and Mike Boogie won the power of veto.
Correct. It's a wrap! That's what I'm talking about! Mike Boogie's in the building! What? Tried to push Mike Boogie and Chilltown up against a wall, and I tried to tell you that wasn't gonna happen.
Mike Boogie just won a competition, which is something none of us ever thought would happen.
This was obviously fantastic, because even though he found out he wasn't actually Janelle's target, that was all contingent on him coming off the block. If the veto fell into the wrong hands and it wasn't used this week, then Boogie actually probably would have been the evicted player here, regardless of what Janelle wanted. So winning it and securing immunity was crucial. But amidst the celebration, Boogie kicked a pair of glass goggles and split his toe open, and he had to get like 10 stitches for it. Classic Boogie.
After winning the power of veto, there was a pair of goggles on the ground.
Good job, bro. Congratulations.
Oh, sorry. I just cut my foot open on that. I ended up with 10 stitches in my foot.
Now that Boogie was safe, the big thing was to make sure that Will didn't go up in his place. The good news is that Janelle really liked Will, and she made it clear to him that she didn't want to put him up. The bad news is that literally the rest of the house was pressuring Janelle to send Will home. However, Will did a really great job convincing Janelle to go with her gut, despite what anyone else wanted, and her gut told her to take out the floaters. So, at the veto meeting, Boogie took himself off the block, and Janelle named Diane as the replacement.
It is a distinct possibility that if I veto myself today, Will could go up. So I'm gonna hope that our hard work pays off. I have decided to use the power of veto on myself.
Unfortunately, I have to nominate you, Diane.
For the fourth week in a row, Chilltown had found a way to survive a Season 6 HOH reign, and Janelle keeping Will safe solidified to Boogie that Janelle actually could be trusted, and he and Will were genuinely going to start secretly working with Janelle moving forward.
Bring. Hello? Check this. Okay, I think they're about to call your name.
They are.
Janelle puts Diane up.
If Boogie thought this was good, though, well, things were about to get a whole lot better. You see, James was really adamant about Janelle putting up Will this week, and he basically told her if she didn't, then he would know that she made a secret deal with Chilltown. Now that Janelle didn't nominate Will, James was furious. He felt that the Season 6 Alliance never did what was best for the team and that they were all selfish. And this was the last straw. James decided that he was now secretly defecting from the Season 6 Alliance, and his main target going forward was Janelle. Okay, that's cool, I guess. But what does this have to do with Boogie? Well, the answer is everything. It's time to strap in once again. Okay, so before the season began, Boogie and Will were making a lot of calls to the other prospective All-Stars to try and set up some pregame alliances. And one of the big agreements they came into the house with was a 4-person alliance consisting of Boogie, Will, Danielle, and James. Now, clearly, once the game started, that pregame alliance was put on hold, as indicated by the fact that James spent like all of this week and parts of the last week trying to target Chilltown, and Chilltown had done their fair share of targeting James too. But that was all water under the bridge now. If Janelle was going to try and secretly work with Chilltown, then James would too. So James and Danielle discussed, and they decided that it was time for a revolution to start in the house. Danielle approached Will and Boogie in the backyard and pitched the alliance to them. And just like that, a new secret power alliance was formed. The Legion of Doom.
It has begun.
Let's get it on.
What we do now is we take Chilltown and we remove Season 6 from the house.
So this is the new four. James, myself, and you two. Legion of Doom. Bum, bum, bum.
All right, what's he gonna do if he gets HOH?
He's putting her ass up.
So, just in case you needed a recap, this week started with Boogie accepting the fact that Janelle was going to target him and probably send him home. The week ended with both Boogie and Will safe and off the block, them having a new secret alliance with Janelle, and them having an additional secret alliance with Danielle and James. What's funny is that Boogie himself didn't actually do all that much this week, but all the surrounding action in the house ended up benefiting him tremendously, and it put him in a great spot.
I think I just formed a sub-alliance between James and Danielle, the girl we tried to vote out the first week. Somebody get these fools a blindfold because they're in the dark.
I do want to give Boogie at least some credit for dialing it back this week and doing a genuinely good job playing nice with Janelle and James and making them feel comfortable enough to work with him despite their prior war during the season.
Is Will willing to break his word or just Boogie?
Will break his word. He doesn't care.
Right.
But Boogie's not that type of man.
That's good.
As for the vote, Janelle wanted Diane gone. And Boogie knew that it was in his best interest to do as she wanted, and that would show Janelle that he was good for his word. So when eviction night came, Boogie voted to evict Diane, and by a vote of 7-1, Diane was evicted from the All-Star House in 11th place, completely eradicating the Season 5 players.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Who do you want evicted from the Big Brother house?
Regrettably, I vote to evict Diane.
Diane.
Diane. Diane.
Diane.
Diane.
Diane.
Erica.
By a vote of 7-1, Diane, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
Will, once again, voted in the minority, as he wanted to give Diane a sympathy vote. But it didn't matter. Another floater was gone from the game, and somehow, after 4 weeks of Season 6 in power, Chilltown found themselves to be in their best position yet.
Oh boy, I'm really enjoying this game.
You read what you saw.
Exactly.
Going into week 5, Boogie actually didn't want to win the HOH this time because he knew he didn't need to. So he threw the competition, and he actually ended up winning $10,000 in the process.
10 grand! I don't care about the 10 G's, dude. Shut up. Booyakasha, 10 G's in front of my eyes. However, I didn't want to celebrate. I had to do a little acting performance.
That's not a bad prize. But what was even better was the fact that for the first time, a Season 6 member didn't win the HOH, and instead, Danielle won it. For legitimately the first time since the game began, Boogie could rest easy this week, knowing that he and Will were not going to be targeted. He and Danielle had had a pretty good relationship over the last couple of weeks, and now that they had just solidified the Legion of Doom, things were looking great for Chilltown.
I love that Danny is head of household. I would buy a ticket for this nomination ceremony.
Danielle wanted to target Janelle, so she nominated Janelle and James for eviction. Danielle nominating James might sound like a shock, but she did so to try and hide from the house that they were actually aligned. Now, even though Danielle wanted Janelle out, that's not actually what Boogie wanted. Boogie had his own secret alliance with Janelle, and Boogie knew that keeping both Janelle and Danielle in the house was the best thing he could possibly do, because that meant that they would just keep going after each other, and that would buy him and Will more time in the game. So when Boogie and Will were both chosen to play in the veto, they agreed to secretly throw it in the hopes that Janelle could win it and keep herself safe.
Danielle wants Chilltown to win the power of veto. However, we have our own agenda.
As luck would have it, this veto competition involved the players secretly betting or spending points in order to receive punishments and prizes, respectively, which made it super easy for Boogie to throw and win some sweet prizes in the process. Better yet, though, Janelle ended up winning the veto.
Hey, Boogie, did you win POV today?
Nah, I won a trip to Aruba for 2 and a plasma television. Did you win POV?
No, I won $5,000.
Danielle was pissed, but Boogie and Will were secretly super happy with this result. At this point, Danielle was ready to put up Kaser, but Boogie and Will were hoping to maybe get her to put up Marcellus instead, because as soon as the Season 6 alliance was broken apart, then Chilltown could be the next big target.
The reason to make Marcellus a target is it keeps more attention off of Chilltown.
At the veto, Mike and Will had secretly won the majority of the prizes, but they were trying to pin it all on Marcellus and hope that this would paint a target on his back.
They're pissed because they think Marcellus got a bunch of the stuff. So, if you'll take out Marcellus, they're going to offer you amnesty.
Unfortunately, Danielle was committed to taking out a Season 6 member, so Boogie and Will's attempts to get rid of Marcellus would have to wait another week. At the veto ceremony, Janelle took herself off the block, and Danielle named Kaser the replacement, solidifying that a Season 6 member would finally be evicted from the house. All things considered, Kaser was one of the people that Boogie felt he could trust the least in this game. Boogie literally came into the game wanting to target Kaser over everyone. And since Kaser was one of the people that Boogie wasn't in an alliance with, he was ultimately fine with him leaving. The only other thing of note that I want to point out from this week is that Boogie started to get his flirt on a little bit with Erica. I know I haven't mentioned it too much outside of week 1, but Erica and Boogie had maintained a sort of low-key understanding throughout the season. They were never outwardly working together, but they had a good level of rapport that had the potential to eventually turn into something in the future. And as of right now, that something seemed to be some back and forth flirting.
You look cute this morning.
Oh, thank you. Is that good or bad?
Anyways, when eviction night came, Boogie stuck with his Legion of Doom alliance, and he voted to evict Kaser, and by a vote of 5-1, Kaser was evicted from the Big Brother house. With that, the pre-jury phase was over, and the players headed into the mid-game.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Please reveal your vote.
Hate to do it on your birthday, but I vote to evict Kaser.
Kaser.
James.
James.
By a final vote of 5-1, Kaser, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
You should have got down with Chilltown earlier. I tried to tell you something that you're going to see very shortly, and that's that you could not trust your boy James. So the first member of S6 has left the building.
Going into the final 9, I am unsure if Boogie actually wanted to win the HOH or not, but regardless, he ended up losing. However, the outcome wasn't too bad because his new flirt partner, Erica, won the HOH instead. Well, actually, just kidding. It turns out there were some technical errors going on in the competition, and they needed to redo the HOH. On the redo, Boogie came really close to winning it, but he got the final question wrong. And instead, Janelle won her 3rd HOH of the season. This woman was unbelievable.
Josh, congratulations, Janelle. You're the new head of household.
But this was actually a good outcome for Boogie. Janelle wasn't coming for Chilltown because they were aligned now. So Boogie and Will spent their time trying to convince Janelle to go after one player in particular, Marcellus.
I'm pretty sure Will and I and James can convince Janelle. If she has to put up Danielle, put her up against Marcellus, then we could get rid of Marcellus and still save Danielle.
Unfortunately, Janelle was actually really close friends with Marcellus, and she had bigger personal fish to fry that took priority. So there really wasn't all that much that Chilltown could do at the time. So, at the nomination ceremony, Janelle nominated Danielle and Erica for Eviction. Were these the most ideal nominations for Boogie? No, of course not. But ultimately, Boogie didn't care too much because he and Will were safe. Plus, there was still a veto. Before we get to that though, we have to talk about Boogie's positioning. This week, Boogie did a really great job working on both of his alliances. At the start of the week, he made sure to tell Janelle that he threw the HOH competition to her because he knew that she needed it, which was a great way for him to build and maintain trust with her. Because of how close Howie was with Janelle, and because Chilltown and Janelle had successfully gone 2 weeks in a row of working together, trust was at an all-time high within this group, and this led to Howie being added into this Chilltown plus Janelle alliance. Then, with the Legion of Doom, Boogie spent a ton of time strategizing with them and trying to figure out a way to get them all through the week, knowing that Danielle was Janelle's target. The funny thing with the Legion of Doom is that Danielle and James weren't sure if they could trust Will all that much, but they did trust Boogie. They felt that Boogie was pretty straight up about his intentions with them, and it made James and Danielle feel a bit safer with Will by extension. I wanted to bring this up because I know that the general consensus is that Will was the one doing all the heavy lifting for Chilltown. But Boogie was actually an imperative part towards their success. Will may have been the key towards Janelle's trust, but Boogie was proving to be the key towards Danielle and James's trust. So, now Boogie was extra good with Janelle, James, Danielle, and even Howie. So why not add one more person? During this week, Boogie took a big step forward with Erica, transforming their flirtmance into more of a romance. Erica was actually really into Mike Boogie, and since they were already working together a bit, this felt like the natural next step forward down the path of their alliance/showmance.
Continuing the charade. Which one? We're not madly in love with each other.
I really like Mike Boogie.
Okay, who are we kidding? She's got a nice rack. Oh my God! But she's smart and nice too.
Would you marry me?
Yes.
However, Boogie's intentions were rather nefarious. Even though he liked Erica as a person, and he did find her hot, Erica was just another number for him to use when he needed it. But when her use ran out for him, he would drop her without batting an eye.
Let me tell you the real deal, folks. I'm gonna play around with her a little bit. She's on the block, so she's gonna need to show me a little loving to try to swing my vote her way. Trust me on this one, things may not be as they seem.
This relationship with Erica was a part of an overarching, larger scheme that he and Will cooked up, which they called Operation Double Date. Boogie would work on Erica while Will would get closer with Janelle, and this would give each member of Chilltown a primary +1 figure that they could use outside of the Legion of Doom.
Chilltown is on a little mission right now called Operation Double Date. But what we're really doing is
ripping their hearts out of their chest and squeezing the blood in the pocket of their cheap blouses before they can blink twice.
Stop! Hey, Boogie! The entire shower sequence tonight is all strategy.
We took no pleasure from it.
In general, Boogie's diary room segment about Erica, as well as his general using of her, feels really icky and scummy. But it's no secret that having a showmance can be a very powerful tool if utilized correctly. So, in a game sense, this was a really good thing for Boogie to have in his back pocket. However, who knew how long he would actually have this, because Erica was on the block and could go home by the end of the week. Boogie's plan for the veto was for himself, Will, and James to all throw it if they were chosen to play, so that either Danielle or Erica could win it and save themselves, thus forcing Janelle to name a replacement, possibly a new target, without actually betraying her. This was funny, because this was almost the exact same thing that happened the last week, except Danielle was the HOH and Janelle was on the block. And what's even funnier is that the outcome ended up being the same thing too. Boogie wasn't chosen to play, but Will and James were each able to do their part and throw the veto to Danielle, and she won the veto.
Things went almost perfectly today. We wanted Danielle to win the power of veto, and it was extremely successful.
Janelle was beyond upset that Danielle was now safe. However, she wasn't mad at Chilltown because James was the only one who looked obvious about throwing it, which meant that Boogie and Will were in the clear. At this point, with Danielle safe, Janelle wanted Erica to go home. And this looked like it would be the case. Janelle was going to nominate Chicken George as a pawn, and Erica would get evicted. Unless maybe someone else went up instead. Boogie really wanted Marcellus gone, as it was clear the two of them were never going to work together. However, Boogie and Will knew that Janelle was pretty steadfast on Erica being the target. But what if they lied to her? The two of them realized that if they pitched Janelle to put up Marcellus, but only as a pawn, then she might just do it. And then at that point, Boogie and Will would have control of the vote and they could just evict Marcellus and keep Erica in the game.
You want me to put up Marcellus?
Yes.
It's the ultimate test of us, too, because you know how much we hate Marcellus.
Marcellus will get voted out.
Nominate him, he will cry the whole week,
I
he
know
will not go home, and he will be devastated for the next HOH. When Boogie and I say we have your back, we have your back.
And crazily enough, she actually bit. At the veto ceremony, Danielle took herself off the block, and Janelle nominated her good friend Marcellus as the replacement.
He is someone that I haven't trusted from day one. We had to go about it in a bit of a sneaky way, but that's how things work around here.
Once Marcellus hit the block, Boogie knew that this vote was flipping. They played it cool at first, even telling Marcellus that he was safe. But all the while, they were just waiting for the perfect opportunity to scatter the pieces and reassemble them to their own benefit.
We will absolutely stay this week, give my personal guarantee.
Yes, we will. Relax.
Okay, you're safe.
Fucker. You're going down.
Boogie and Will talked with the Legion of Doom and got them in on the plan, and they agreed that it was smarter to evict Marcellus over Erica. At some point during the week, Chilltown convinced/told Janelle about the plan to evict Marcellus, to which she was not happy. But eventually, with enough conversation, she reluctantly agreed. Now, before we get to the eviction, there's one more pretty important thing we have to go over. The coup d'etat. Throughout the week, the players were given clues to a riddle, and the first person to answer correctly would win this mysterious special power. Well, what do you know? Mike Boogie ended up figuring it out first, and he received the coup d'etat.
Hey kids, ding ding, school's in session. You reap what you sow.
Congratulations. You were the first house guest to answer correctly.
Yes!
Now, for those that don't know, the coup d'etat is the most broken power in all of Big Brother. During one of the next 3 evictions, before anyone cast their votes, Boogie could stand up and use his power, which would allow him to save both nominees and replace them with whoever he wanted, other than the HOH and veto holder, and then the vote would be held as normal. This is an incredibly overpowered twist that Boogie had in his possession, and it theoretically should have put him in the single most powerful position in the game. Right? Well, not quite. For starters, everyone actually knew that Boogie had won it. It just wasn't a secret that was that well kept, and it was common knowledge in the house that Boogie was assumed to have the power. Okay, that kinda takes the secret of it all away, but that shouldn't diminish the level of power that Boogie had. Except for the fact that Boogie actually had the coup d'etat taken away from him. This may come as a shock to a lot of you because it was never mentioned on the show, but one of the rules was that he was not allowed to explicitly talk about him having the power or what it did. But obviously, Boogie can't keep anything a secret from Will, and he immediately told them about it, to which the producers were like, hey dude, you broke the rules. Your power is null and void now. Leave it to Mike Boogie to receive the greatest power in all the show's history, and then lose it because he couldn't keep his lips sealed. However, we might still see this power come into play in a different way.
So the coup d'etat power is now no longer part of the Big Brother game.
When eviction night came, somehow, everyone got on board with Boogie's plan. And by a unanimous vote of 6-0, Marcellus was evicted and became the first member of the jury.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Please reveal your vote now.
I vote to evict Marcellus.
Marcellus.
Marcy.
Marcellus.
Marcellus.
Margellus.
By a vote of 6-0, Marcellus, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
This was a great outcome for Boogie, as he got to keep Erica in the house and get rid of his biggest nemesis in one fell swoop. In general, this was probably Boogie's best week, even with losing the power, and he was heading into the final 8 feeling pretty confident.
He was a little baby who didn't get his way, and I'm very happy that I was the orchestrator of his demise.
Good riddance.
Going into the final 8, the only player that Mike Boogie didn't want to win the HOH was Chicken George, because he wasn't sure what he would do with it. So, naturally, Chicken George won the HOH. Then, to make matters way worse, the players were told that this would be a double eviction week, meaning that George would have to make his nominations immediately. This was a scary spot for Boogie, but the Chicken Man didn't swing in his direction, and instead he nominated James and Erica, with James being his target.
That was the worst person to do live, because he didn't have time to get to him.
Chicken George is such a wild card, and you just never know what the guy's gonna do or what he's thinking.
Now, double evictions back in the day were a lot more like fast forwards, because instead of the rest of the week playing out in like 20 minutes, it would play out across 24 hours. Still faster paced than a normal week, though. Now, initially, Boogie actually wanted Erica to leave over James. For whatever reason, Will really didn't trust Erica.
Because Erica is gonna stab you in the back, dude.
She's been in this band entirely too long, and she's gonna ruin our career if we're not careful about it.
But I do think this is a mistake for Boogie to want to let Erica go already, because he had a solid level of influence over her. However, at the end of the day, Boogie's main goal was always to get himself and Will to the final 2 seats together, no matter what. So I can somewhat excuse him being okay with letting certain allies of his leave, because it normally was in favor of keeping other allies around that would give Boogie the best chance of making it to the final 2 with Will specifically. That thought process had to be put on hold, though, because before you knew it, it was time for the veto competition, and James won it. This now meant that someone else would have to take his place, and Boogie started pushing for Janelle to be the replacement. Even though Janelle was an ally of his, she was such a huge threat and lethal competitor, and this felt like the time to strike.
I want to offer you this, to go after the most feared person in the house. Think of all the people that'll be playing in the next HOH. Erica, Danielle, myself, Will, James, and over here is going to be Howie. Do you like his chances, or do you like these people's chances over the HOH?
Could be a possibility.
Just think about that. Not for what we want. Think for you.
I just thought this was going to be the way we could finally get out the Queen Bee.
Boogie gave George a pretty captivating pitch, and I'll give him credit for that. However, for the first time all game, Boogie and Will were not on the same page. Will still saw immense value in keeping Janelle, and he hoped to continue the Janelle versus Danielle war in order to buy Chilltown more weeks in the house. So Will went to George and volunteered himself as the replacement nominee in order to save Janelle and send Erica home, who I already stated he did not trust. The funniest thing about all of this is that Will never told Boogie, so when word got around that George was thinking about putting Will on the block, Boogie became livid, as he didn't know that Will literally volunteered for it.
He's thinking of putting up Will.
Why? The fact that Chicken George was protecting Janelle and Howie annoyed me on many levels. I will remind him that you reap what you sow.
So, right before the veto ceremony, Boogie held a little house meeting, Since everyone knew that Boogie had won the secret power, Boogie used that to his advantage, and he basically threatened George by asking him if he really wanted to go up against such a dangerous power.
Chicken George, if you're thinking about nominating Will, I'm not gonna let my game be sacrificed by keeping my mouth shut. You could put any of these people up.
I figure the doctor's the best player in the game.
There is a power in the house. Julie said this person will have the power to change the face of this game forever. Is that something that you maybe want to go up against? I wanted to be sure that my voice was the last one heard before the veto ceremony.
George held his own in the moment, but in the end, the threat got to him. George had refused to put up Janelle because he respected her a lot, but that same promise didn't extend to her allies. At the veto ceremony, James took himself off the block, and George nominated Howie as the replacement.
Well, we had the discussion in the bedroom. Boogie, I'm glad you talked. There's only one person left, Howie.
But your allies decided to sell you under the bus last week. You were expendable to them.
I had to go with what Boogie told me because Boogie made sense.
Now, I want to give Boogie some credit here for his strategic tactics he put in play, especially considering the fact that, as far as I'm aware, the power was already null and void at this point. Boogie was able to keep Will off of the chopping block, and now Howie was there instead. As for the vote, there was some real intrigue here. Obviously, Janelle was going to vote to keep Howie. We know that. The other 4 voters, though, were the 4 Legion of Doom members, and they were actually split. Both Will and James wanted Howie to stay, as they knew that Janelle would be furious with them if they voted him out. But Boogie held his ground and said, no, Erica needs to stay, and Howie has to go, as he wanted Janelle to be weakened. Luckily for Boogie, Danielle was on his side, which left us at a 2-2 standstill in the alliance. Because this was a double eviction week, there was very little time to discuss. But Boogie eventually managed to get Will on his side, and that gave him the votes to evict Howie. Boogie had been telling Howie throughout the day to relax and not worry, promising him that he would vote to keep him, which meant that we were in store for a blindside.
Can you keep me? Yeah. Seriously? Yes. Rose before Rose. Yeah, of course. Thanks, bro.
This house is full of lies. If you think you're gonna play it without lying the whole way through and win this game, well, you're lying to yourself.
When it was time for the eviction a couple hours later, Boogie, Will, and Danielle voted out Howie. And by a vote of 3-2, Howie was blindsided in 8th place.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Who would you like to evict?
I vote to evict Howie.
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 Erica.
Erica.
By a vote of 3-2, Howie, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star House.
Howie was not too pleased with Boogie in his exit, but it made for quite the memorable boot.
Sorry, Howie. Look at the cellar, buddy. Right to my face. Lie to me. You little punk. There's 20 people standing outside the door. Get to step in. Chilltown's word is good as gold.
Go get a life, Howie. Go get a life, dog. Hey, buddy, little newsflash. You're playing Big Brother. It's a game where people lie. Don't know if you got the memo.
Going into the final 7 HOH, Boogie was gunning for the win. It ended up coming down to him versus Janelle, and the winner ended up being...
Congratulations, Mike. You're the new head of household.
For the first time this season, Chilltown held the title of HOH, and honestly, it couldn't have come at a better time. Boogie just had back-to-back weeks of betraying his allies, so coming into power now, where nobody could bite back at him, was great.
Yo, Big Brother, I hope that head of household room is nice and chilly because Chilltown is in the building.
Now that he was making the decisions, Boogie came up with a big plan. He knew that the rest of the house wanted him to target Janelle, so to save face, he was going to nominate Janelle. However, he didn't necessarily want her out. I know, Boogie changes who he wants to evict with the blow of the wind, but bear with me. The Legion of Doom had been a great alliance for Boogie over the past few weeks, and it helped put him in a power position when he needed it the most. But James was a really big threat. James would always be more loyal to Danielle over Boogie, and especially Will. And now that they were getting down to the final few players, it was kind of that time to make the move on him before he could make the move on them. Plus, with Chilltown being so in the spotlight over the past couple of weeks, they needed any sort of shield that they could find. And because of Janelle's competition prowess and domination, she, by herself, was more of a target than Chilltown. So Boogie's plan was to nominate Janelle and James and make it seem to the whole house that Janelle was his target. But Boogie and Will would secretly try and help Janelle win the veto and then blindside James by the end of the week. If James or Danielle happened to win the veto, though, then Boogie and Will would pretend that they were Legion of Doom strong the entire time, and they would just evict Janelle at that point.
Here's my thoughts. I nominate Janelle and James. Me and you help Janelle win the POV. However, as an insurance policy, if one of the other people wins the POV, we'll just send Janelle home and that'll be fine. Perfect.
No matter which way you sliced it, a strong competitor was leaving the game, and whichever player stayed would think that Boogie was with them and that it was the plan all along. All things considered, this was a really good plan, and it's quite impressive that Boogie was able to rope in both incoming nominees and have them okay with what was about to go down.
I'm trusting Danielle, Boogie, and Will with my fate each week.
I feel safe. I kind of have to trust Chilltown a little bit.
These nominations were meant for a higher plan and a more complicated plan than most people will probably know.
So, Boogie nominated Janelle and James at the nomination ceremony, and when it was time for the veto, everything went as Boogie planned, and Janelle won the veto.
I actually found a J-stall very early on, so I put it on the ground, made eye contact with her, and she scooped it up and got back in time.
Janelle, you have won the power of veto.
At this point, Boogie and Will were set on James going home. But they put on an act for the rest of the house, pretending like they were so mad that Janelle had won the veto. At the veto ceremony, Janelle took herself off the block and Boogie replaced her with Chicken George. And throughout the rest of the week, Boogie pretended like they were voting out the Chicken Man.
James looked at us and he said, I hope I can trust you guys. However, it's hard to trust villains, especially if you're a villain yourself.
It took until the day of the eviction before they told Danielle and James that they were voting James out. When it was time for the eviction, everyone but Danielle voted against James, and by a vote of 3-1, James was evicted in 7th place.
Hello, Will.
Hey there.
Please cast your vote to evict.
I vote to evict James.
James.
James. George.
By a vote of 3-1, James, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star House.
Will was a little hesitant to vote out Chicken George, and I have to agree with him. You are far more superior.
With that, the Legion of Doom was disbanded, and with only 6 players left, it was official. After a long roller coaster of a season, Chilltown was in control of the house, and it was the perfect spot to be in as we head into the endgame.
The stakes are very high right now, and I think everyone realizes that a great player just left, and our moment could come next.
Going into the final 6, Boogie watched from the sidelines as Erica won the next HOH. Erica made it clear to Boogie that, just like every week, Janelle was her target. Erica was going to nominate Janelle and Chicken George, which she proved by actually nominating them, and then she said that if one of them came off the block, Will would be the replacement.
Will's going up.
Okay, not exactly what Boogie was hoping for, but he had some wiggle room here. In Boogie's ideal world, if one of the nominees came off the block, Erica should replace them with Danielle. And then maybe, just maybe, they could send Danielle home, as she was one fantastic Big Brother player that would probably win against everyone left in the house, and Boogie didn't believe that Danielle still trusted him after he sent James home. However, the fact of the matter was that Danielle was one of Erica's closest allies, possibly even closer than Boogie was with Erica. So it would take a lot to convince her to put up Danielle over Will if it came down to it.
You won't put Danielle up?
Put
the brakes on that one, sweetheart. We need to talk about putting Danielle in there.
Luckily, because they were in a showmance, Boogie had a lot more one-on-one time with Erica than Danielle did, and he made sure to put it to good use. He planted the seeds right from the get-go that Danielle was actually gonna go after Erica next week, that she would beat everyone in a jury vote, and then Boogie even put in a good word for Janelle in an attempt to open a door and make Erica still feel secure with the other players in the house in a hypothetical world where Danielle gets evicted this week.
If Danielle's not against anybody else but Chicken George in the finals, she'll win. I think she needs to go.
If I find out you're playing me after this, I'll kick your ass.
Boogie's work on Erica was very effective, and it had her very seriously considering this. However, after Janelle pulled out another veto win, and Erica was put in a spot where she actually needed to make a replacement, she told Boogie that she couldn't nominate Danielle. It would just be too difficult to put up her best friend, and she couldn't do it.
You're gonna have to send her home.
I can't.
But Boogie wasn't taking no for an answer. He kept pushing her and persuading her to not put up Will and to instead put up Danielle. And it didn't hurt that literally everyone in the house was also telling her to nominate Danielle because of how big of a threat she was.
Erica, I know it's not your nature. You were gonna have to be bad. You know what I mean?
Danielle, they think it's the best.
Well, we can't. No, not at all.
Wondering if right now is the timing to do that. Is it?
I don't know if you've noticed, but the color pictures are dwindling.
I just don't know if now is the right time to turn on Dan. I don't know.
And then, finally, she said yes. At the veto meeting, Janelle took herself off the block, and Erica named Danielle as the replacement, keeping Will off of the block, and once again ensuring that Boogie would get what he wanted for the week.
At this point, Danielle, I'm sorry.
Do you remember a few weeks back when I got my showmance to put up her very best friend, Marcellus?
Yeah.
Could I bother you just get her to put up her best friend, Danielle?
Sure, no problem.
Cool.
This was a pivotal point for Boogie. Had he not been able to convince Erica to nominate Danielle, then not only would Will be a possibility to go home, but Boogie's road to the end would have been made that much harder with Danielle still in the game. And it would show that Erica was more loyal to Danielle than to him. But instead, Boogie got her to nominate Danielle, and now he and Will controlled the vote for the week. After putting in all that work, there was no way they were going to allow Danielle to survive this week. So when eviction night came, Boogie voted her out, and by a vote of 3-0, Danielle Reyes was evicted in 6th place.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Who would you like to evict?
I regrettably vote to evict Danielle.
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 By a vote of 3-0, Danielle, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star House.
I'll never forget our Legion of Doom days. I wish we could have taken it further. You're just an amazing player, and Chicken George is not.
This had been a very successful week for Boogie, but it wasn't over just yet, because Julie announced that it was double eviction night. And this time, it was a real one. Before the hour was up, another All-Star would be evicted.
Does everyone understand the rules?
Yes.
Then here we go.
Going into the double eviction HOH, Boogie wanted to win it because the numbers were dwindling too much to risk throwing it. But it didn't matter because Janelle went a perfect 8 for 8 in the competition, and she was crowned the HOH for the 4th time this season.
I wonder who won the head of household. Janelle!
In the moment, Boogie was worried that Janelle might finally take the opportunity to target Chilltown, but luckily, Will was able to grab her ear before she made nominations. Janelle was actually wanting to put up Erica and Boogie together, with Erica being the target, but Will was able to solidify that it was Chilltown and her to the end, and the only way they could guarantee that was if she kept Boogie off the block. So when Julie asked for Janelle's nominations, she nominated Erica, and George.
Will's done unbelievable work on Janelle using his charisma, and miraculously the two of us are still here.
Because Erica was more of a competitive threat than George, Boogie was going to vote her out if she remained on the block. Because, as I've mentioned, Boogie's entire purpose was not just to get to the end of the game himself, but to get to the end of the game with Will. And that would be so much easier with George in the house over Erica. However, Erica then went out and won the veto.
I don't think Erica realizes just how much she saved herself. Number one don't in showmancing, don't ever get real feelings for the person.
Not only did this mean that she was going to make it to the final four, but Boogie also realized that this meant he was about to go on the block. Janelle's only choices for a replacement were Boogie and Will, and she sure as heck wasn't putting up Will. So when Erica removed herself from the block, Janelle named Boogie as the replacement.
There was only two choices for Janelle, and I immediately knew that I was going to be taking that seat.
I'm gonna have to nominate Boogie.
Being nominated at the final five is usually a very scary thing. But when the only two people voting are your best friend and your showmance, I guess you're allowed to feel a little bit comfortable. Erica and Will went to cast their votes, and by a vote of 2-0, Chicken George was evicted from the Big Brother house.
For the house guests, nobody likes me on that jury. This is a very sympathetic character that's going to be very tough to beat in the end.
Hi, Will.
Hey,
Please cast your vote to evict now.
tough decision. I'm not really sure. I gotta evict Chicken George.
George.
By a vote of 2-0, George, you have been evicted from the Big Brother All-Star house.
This was a pretty action-packed double eviction, and even though Boogie's two ideal evictees both won a competition to keep themselves safe, he couldn't really complain too much because he and Will both just made it to the final four.
Bring! Hello. Big Brother kicked it into overdrive. Danielle was evicted immediately. Janelle won the HOH.
What's the bottom line?
The bottom line is we're both still here.
Hot off the heels of his first nomination since week 4, Boogie went into this HOH wanting to win, as it was practically just free immunity. And, as luck would have it, Boogie did win the HOH.
That makes you, Mike Boogie, the new HOH!
Yes, it's beyond words. I feel like I've actually won the show.
Just like that, Boogie had punched his ticket into the final 3. And now it was just a matter of getting there with his ideal 2 others, Erica and Will. Realistically though, Boogie and Will should have had no problem getting past this round. Just a couple days beforehand, Boogie and Will secretly brought in Erica and Janelle individually and initiated them into Chilltown, with each woman thinking that they were the only one being brought in.
We are Chilltown. We are ninjas. Everything's cool. Everyone Chilltown. Work by secret ninja moves.
No one knows that I'm with Chilltown.
Being that I'm a secret member of Chilltown, I think they have my back.
Chilltown gave out honorary memberships to everybody in this house. How many are you actually gonna honor? 0.
Now that they were in the final 4, Boogie and Will met with each woman individually once more, and gave each of them the exact same game plan.
If you want to take yourself off, I'll be up. You vote her out.
I know you guys are telling her the exact same thing when I leave her.
As long as one of the 3 of us wins a veto, it's fine. You win it.
Right.
Take yourself off. Put me up. You'll save me.
Because of the influence that Boogie had over Erica and the influence that Will had over Janelle, the Chilltown boys were legitimately looking golden. When it was time for the final power of veto, it should come as no surprise to learn that Janelle won her record-breaking 5th veto comp of the season. This was, admittedly, Boogie's least ideal outcome because it meant that Erica was going to go home, but ultimately, it shouldn't have mattered because it still meant that Boogie and Will would make it to the final 3 together. Throughout this penultimate round, Will started getting a little nervous that Janelle might evict him, but Boogie helped reassure him that there was no way that was happening.
Boogie, I'm going home.
No, this is our show, and these bitches think they're gonna try to steal it from us.
When eviction night came, everything fell into place, and with the sole vote, Janelle voted to evict Will.
I really feel like this summer I've made a lot of mistakes. After tonight, I'm done making mistakes. For Marcellus and Howie, I vote to evict you, Will. Sorry.
Oh no. That wasn't supposed to happen. Boogie was so certain that Janelle was going to evict Erica. So what happened? Well, as it turns out, giving the word-for-word exact same pitch to both Janelle and Erica was a pretty bad idea. After Janelle won the veto, Erica knew that she was probably going to get evicted. So she did what any normal person would do when their back was against the wall. Fight to stay. Erica spoke with Janelle one night and insisted that Chilltown might be playing the two of them. It didn't take long for them to start comparing notes, and the women realized that Chilltown had given each of them literally the exact same pitches for the week and had roped both of them into the Chilltown Alliance under the guise that they were the only one being brought in. With this newfound knowledge, Erica and Janelle bonded, and now that they knew how much they had been played by the boys, they wanted to reclaim their power in a big way. So the two of them decided that they were done with Chilltown and made a secret plan for Janelle to save Erica on eviction night, blindsiding Will in the process, and then try and make it to the final two together. The two women managed to keep it a secret all week long, to the point where Boogie had even said his formal goodbye to Erica before the eviction. But he was in for quite the surprise when Janelle didn't actually evict her and instead evicted his best friend.
The girls just did an excellent job of acting. I'm totally flabbergasted.
Checkmate.
Showmances can be very effective for you. It kind of turned into a homance. I've used that girl up for all I need, and that's all she was good for.
I have never seen Boogie look more devastated than when Will was voted out. All season long, it was his dream to get to the final two with Will, as he considered that to be the ultimate victory. Even in terms of winning himself, Will had always said that if he got to the final two with Boogie, he would ask the jurors to give Boogie the title as the winner of the season, because the two of them had already made a pact to split whatever earnings they made. And Boogie desperately craved the crown, while Will didn't really care all that much. However, despite this, I don't see a world where the jury actually votes for Boogie over Will in the end. So, for Boogie's winning chances, this was actually the one thing he needed to happen, even if he never actually wanted it to go down like that.
I had really hoped that it would be the two of us sitting in those final two seats. We almost pulled it off, and this was one for the ages, man. Chilltown forever, baby. I've never been in the Big Brother house in 2 seasons without Will. Bring! Bring! Oh,
man. So, in a weird way, losing Will technically boosted his own chances at winning the show. However, it did make his road to actually making it to the final two that much more difficult. So, going into the final 3, Boogie had just one thing on his mind: winning that final HOH.
I have to reset, and I have to figure out how I'm going to play the rest of this game without Will, and I have to regroup, circle the wagons, and figure out what I'm going to do to get to the end.
Janelle, Erica, Boogie, the final 3 All-Stars. To give you an idea of where everyone stood, here is what each player would do if they were to win the final HOH. If Boogie were to win, he was going to take Erica, because Janelle was way too big of a threat to bring to the final 2. However, as things currently stood, this was the only way that Boogie would be able to make it to the end, because after Will's eviction, both Erica and Janelle were going to take each other to the final 2, and they were going to evict Mike Boogie. So Boogie was in a really tough spot heading into part 1. He needed to win it. However, he actually had something else in mind. Part 1 of the final HOH was going to be endurance, and Boogie knew that going against Erica and Janelle, well, he simply wasn't going to win that battle. So instead of wearing himself out and hurting his chances in part 2, he came up with a little plan.
Hey, Julie, you remember Richard Hatch? They both have to take me to the finals.
This was a very shocking moment. So shocking, in fact, that when it happened, Janelle accidentally let go of her key too. This meant that Erica won the Part 1 endurance competition in like 27 seconds. Then, in Part 2, Boogie got pretty fortunate that the competition geared towards upper body strength, and he actually beat Janelle here, meaning that Boogie would face off against Erica in Part 3. And the comp queen was shockingly eliminated from the final HOH.
Mom, I got the car for you.
Good job, Mikey. Good job.
At this point, Boogie knew he needed to win Erica back over to try and guarantee his spot in the end. So he laid it on thick. He brought the romance back at full force, promised her all the sweet nothings, and how it had to be them in the final 2. And Erica was actually reciprocating.
You'd much rather sit next to me?
Of course.
Yeah?
There's no way I'm sitting next to the girl that's won 9 competitions. You'll lose too if you pick me.
I hate him. And I hate the fact that I'm still attracted to him.
It was enough to convince her to go back on her deal with Janelle and reform her final 2 with Mike Boogie. Not only that though, but Erica actually told him before Part 3 that she was going to try and throw it to him so that he could win it and evict Janelle himself. What a turnaround this was for Boogie. He went from both women against him at the start of the week to a pretty much guaranteed spot in the final 2. So when it was time for Part 3, Boogie was locked in. And wouldn't you know it, Mike Boogie went nearly perfect in the questions, and he was crowned the final HOH.
Congratulations, Mike. You are the final head of household.
That's for you, Will! Chilltown, baby!
Between the two women, it was clear who he needed to vote out. So Mike Boogie stood up, gave a little speech, and chose to evict Janelle in 3rd place.
Janelle, you are a phenomenal player. I love you, but I have to evict you, sweetie.
It's fun.
Man, I am shocked that you're not going to win Big Brother All-Stars, and I'm just really sorry that Scrubbica had to get in the middle of it and ruin it for all of us.
Just like that, Boogie had done it. He came into the house as potentially the least deserving player to hold the title as All-Star. But now he was sitting in the final 2. And the only person standing in his way from $500,000 was his showmance partner, Erica.
Oh, look at these people, Erica, on this board.
When we take a look at the jury, we see a lot of people that Boogie really screwed over in the game. Like big time betrayals. And if these players chose to be bitter, then Erica would wipe the floor in this jury vote. Marcellus, Howie, James, and Danielle were all sent home because of Mike Boogie's lying and double dealing. So going into the jury questions, Boogie needed to find a way to win them over. He talked to Marcellus about how keeping Janelle in the game whenever she was the target helped Chilltown get to the end game. He stroked Howie's ego and told him why he had to vote him out. He explained his reasons for not being loyal to Danielle, and truth be told, it's one of my favorite answers to any jury question ever.
You said you were going to be my Jason. Jason would have never done what you did to me.
I'll make you a deal, Danielle. You give me your vote, and if I go home to my TiVo and I don't see more than one Jason, I'll give you half. You were a very dangerous player, and I won't apologize for it.
Then he stood up and he gave his final speech, where he admitted and owned up to all the lying he had done throughout the season, but saying that that was the reason that he was in the end, and now he was humbly asking them for their votes to crown him the rightful champion of All-Stars.
The truth is, I lied to each and every one of you, but you were all one big member of Chilltown, and when you started to figure it out is when you got evicted. Please, I humbly and respectfully ask you to vote Mike Boogie as the champion of Big Brother 7.
While Boogie made a lot of mistakes throughout the season, his time with the jurors was not one of them. He crushed all of his answers and his final speech, and after all the betraying he had done throughout the season, it was exactly what he needed to do if he wanted a chance at some of their votes. Finale night quickly approached, and with it, the jurors cast their votes for a winner. After checking in with the pre-jurors and watching some of Chilltown's best diary room segments, Julie announced it was time to reveal the vote, and it takes 4 votes to win. Marcellus voted for Erica. Danielle voted for Boogie. Howie voted for Boogie. Chicken George voted for Boogie. And Will voted for Boogie. By a vote of 6-1, Mike Boogie Malin was crowned the winner of Big Brother All-Stars.
Chicken George has voted for Mike. Danielle's vote goes to Mike. Howie's vote goes to Mike. From Will, congratulations with both votes. You are the winner of Big Brother All-Stars.
From beginning to end, Boogie had a roller coaster of a season. He entered the game with a chip on his shoulder, being the least all-star of the all-stars, and he wanted to make his mark on the season and attempted to make a big move in week 1 by flipping the house to vote out Danielle. But he failed to get the numbers to do so, and it put him in a precarious position moving forward. He was a potential target in weeks 2, 3, and 4 during the Season 6 early game HOH streak, and Boogie was even put on the block in that last week. But he won the veto to save himself, and with some help from Will, he was able to flip the script and go from being in danger to being in one of the best possible positions in the entire game. He and Will formed a secret alliance with Janelle, while also forming a separate secret alliance with James and Danielle, putting Boogie in a spot where he was aligned with the 2 most powerful women in the entire game. On top of that, he also began putting his flirtation game into overdrive around week 5, and he roped Erica into a showmance that would soon prove to be pivotal towards his success. Once the jury phase began at the final 9, Mike Boogie went on a huge betrayal streak, where he told Marcellus, Howie, and James that he was keeping them all week long, only to then send them home on eviction night. Then, at the final 6, Boogie used all the influence he had over Erica to get her to turn on her best friend Danielle, which put Chilltown in the driver's seat and set them up perfectly to be the final 2. Unfortunately, the 2 boys played with their food a little bit too much, and they got sloppy as they gave Erica the ammunition she needed to convince Janelle to team up and turn on Will at the final 4, which blindsided Boogie and put him in a tenuous position going into the final 3. However, Boogie was able to reel Erica back into his arms, and after Janelle was unable to win either parts 1 or 2, Boogie had locked up his spot in the finale next to Erica, which was the best spot for him to be in, as showcased by his dominant 6-1 victory over her.
Now, just for the record, Janelle and James voted for Mike to be the winner. Mike, congratulations again. Good job.
While Boogie burned almost every jury member as they walked out of the house, he actually had a better shot at winning than he may have thought. Janelle was surprisingly a huge Boogie supporter once she arrived at the jury house, although a lot of that stemmed from the fact that she was very anti-Erica after Erica seemingly turned on her at the final 3 and potentially through the final HOH. On top of that, Boogie had Will pitching his case very effectively to the other jurors. So when Boogie knocked his jury questions out of the park, it was enough to get Danielle, James, George, and Howie to vote his way as well.
They strike a deal to let Boogie win it, sending you home. Erica stabs you in the back.
Erica is the ultimate floater that I pray to God will not win. Chilltown ran this game. And for us to deny them a winner, it's not really fair.
I've touched on this a couple of times throughout the video, but for the most part, the general consensus surrounding Chilltown's success was that Dr. Will was the one pulling most of the strings, and Boogie was just his little sidekick. Like Dr. Will was Batman and Boogie was Robin. However, after looking through all the live feed transcripts and doing the research for this video, I don't think that's fair to say at all. In fact, I think Boogie might have actually done more of the heavy lifting for the group. Will's influence over Janelle was very impressive, and it did have such a large impact on Chilltown's success. Don't get me wrong. But that was only one person. Boogie was the main guy solidifying Chilltown's alliance with Danielle, James, and Erica, who were also pivotal to Chilltown survival and eventual house takeover, starting from week 5 and lasting all the way through the final 6. Would Boogie have made it to the end without Will? No, probably not. But I don't think Will was making it anywhere close to the end without Boogie. It was a true partnership between the two. And in this instance, I'm inclined to call them Batman 1 and 2, with all of their alliance members being their Robins in this analogy.
Bring!
Hello?
Hey, Boogie, it's Will.
What's up, man?
Dude, are you in the final 2?
I also want to quickly touch upon some of Boogie's most impressive weeks. Boogie's stretch from the final 8 to the final 6 were some of the best Big Brother ever played up to that point. Him utilizing the threat of the coup d'etat to stop Chicken George from nominating Will and instead putting up Howie in the minutes before the veto ceremony was very impressive. Then his HOH reign at the final 7 was potentially the best HOH reign of the entire season, as he had every single person in the house thinking they were in on the house plan and happy to participate. And he had a plan A, B, and C covering all of his bases so that no matter who won the veto and who was up on the block come eviction night, it would always result in Boogie coming out on top. And then, of course, there was the final 6 round, where Boogie was able to convince Erica not to go after Will, and to instead go after Danielle, which, as I said, put Chilltown in full control going into the endgame.
My nominations will reflect what I feel is the best setup for Chilltown to come down the home stretch.
So, as you can see, Boogie did a lot right throughout the season. But he also had a lot of flaws, particularly at the start and end of the game. Boogie didn't do the greatest job managing his perception in the beginning, and he was almost evicted numerous times. The Season 6 Alliance wanted Boogie nominated and evicted for like 3 straight weeks in the beginning of the game, and Boogie did himself absolutely 0 favors by literally telling Janelle he was going to target her if he won HOH. The only reason Boogie wasn't evicted during this stretch was because all the Season 6 members just wanted someone else in the Alliance to do it, and Boogie got really lucky that they never pulled the trigger. Then, at the end of the game, he and Will got way too overconfident with their Operation Double Date plan, and their hubris made them sloppy, which resulted in the women turning on them. Dr. Will was just 1 point away from beating Boogie in the final 4 HOH, and had Boogie lost that, then he would have been the one evicted at the final 4.
Clearly the girls struck some sort of deal to get rid of Chilltown. Will and I let down our guards, we got cocky, and she got to Janelle.
Speaking of which, we gotta talk about the fact that Boogie was not actually playing for himself to win. He was playing for Chilltown to win. Which, on one hand, he did do effectively, and it would have gotten him some money, as he and Will were always going to split the prize. But on the other hand, had he actually made it to the final 2 with Will, he would have lost. So, when looking at the big picture, the only reason that Boogie walked away with the crown was because he played the final 4 round poorly, which resulted in Will's eviction and opened the door for Boogie to make it to the final 2 against someone like Erica, who he could actually beat. That's a pretty wonky situation, and something I would normally knock off major points for. But because they came into the game wanting to split the money and their goal was always to get the 2 of them to the end, I won't be as critical about it.
I'm gonna miss my buddy, and I really had a dream of the 2 of us standing in the finals. I just don't know what happened.
Overall though, I think I'm going to give Mike Boogie an 8.1 out of 10. His highs were really high, and he displayed quite an exceptional ability to manipulate and formulate plans. But his lows cannot be ignored, and it keeps him from being a truly elite player in my eyes.
I consider myself the best player to ever play this game.
So, that right there is the Chilltown saga. Will and Boogie had played in 2 seasons together, and they walked away with the win both times. A perfect 2 for 2. Unfortunately, as many of you know, The story of Chilltown has since been shattered. About 6 years ago, the Amazing Race approached Will and Boogie about potentially appearing on a season together. Boogie, whose life had kind of gone off the deep end, saw this as an opportunity to get back in the spotlight and turn things around. But Dr. Will, who had led a very successful life by this time, had no desire to return to reality TV, and he said no. Boogie wasn't too happy about this, and long story short, he did and said some things that resulted in Will getting a restraining order against Boogie. And since then, things have just gotten worse and worse. It's unfortunate because Chilltown was always the Big Brother duo, but now their story will forever be remembered for what happened afterwards.
It's like the emotions are all over the place and I just don't feel very good. I'm very upset right now.
Anyways, there we go. At the end of the day, Boogie doesn't really seem to be that good of a person. He said some gross stuff in the house, and he's done some bad things out of the house. So I kind of wanted to put a little disclaimer at the end here saying that even though I spent the last 2 hours talking about his game, I don't condone the icky stuff, especially when it comes to his treatment of Erica and Janelle. This video is not meant to put Mike Boogie on any sort of pedestal. It is simply meant to be a retelling of his journey across the season and how he managed to win it. Nothing more and nothing less. My goal has always been to make a winner video about every Big Brother winner. And the unfortunate reality is that some of these winners aren't great people. So I just wanted to make it clear that just because I made this long story does not mean that I agree with the things that Boogie has said and done in any sort of capacity. I'm sure you understood this already, but I wanted to say it just in case. Anyways, if you happen to make it here, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I, of course, need to give that extra special shout out to all of my YouTube members and patrons who would have assuredly seen through Chilltown's shtick and put them both on the block the second they won an HOH. And, as always, here's a clip for you on your way out.
I didn't notice that I was missing a whole face, and so I kept running back and hitting my button, thinking I had the combinations correct. The first fly to drop is, of course, my Chilltown running mate, Will Kirby.
I hope you get a rotten egg, dude. Looking for a new alliance.
Who did America vote as life of the party, Mike or Howie? The correct answer is Howie. What? Only Danielle and James.
Come on. When I won the HOH, I got a bag of peanuts and a comforter. Holy. Nokomis got nominated and she just came out with the fire. George idolizes Chilltown.
Chilltown. Chilltown.
Chicken George is one of 5 people in the way of me winning all the marbles here. From a strategic standpoint, I wasn't trying to win this one, people.
Super Bowl, baby! Wow!
You're the new head of household.
That's for you, Howie!
The house guest got lots of clothes, because if I see Mike Boogie wear a Dolce shirt one more time on the show, really.
We got the Pimpaline.